Disclaimer: this is audio horror fiction. If darkness or the creatures it holds scares you, leave now. Still listening? Good. Then let's begin. Since my son Michael was 7, he has been completely captivated by snow globes. Well, to be more specific, snow globes sold by a store called Gifts That Last. Luckily, the store is only a 10-minute drive away, so once a month, I take my excited son to the store and let him pick out one snow globe. Shit, it's the least I could do after his mother passed away 6 months ago. Her car was T-boned by a man that was on his phone. He died as well. It still angers me that he was given a quick death without feeling any type of guilt. Sorry, I had to vent for a second. Let me introduce myself and my son. My name is Jeremy, and I'm a 28-year-old man with a son that is almost 8 years old now. He is the only reason why I try my hardest to become a better person, as well as keep fighting the fight that is called life. I get depressed a lot after my wife's death, but seeing a smile on my son's face will instantly melt my sadness away. Michael has always been a very well-behaved child. He is incredibly imaginative and shockingly smart for his age. When he isn't playing with his snow globes, he's either reading or practicing on his piano. That is why I always try to get him anything he wants. Luckily for my monthly budget, he just wants one new snow globe a month. I honestly think my son is so fascinated by the globes because it was the last thing my wife gave to him. It may sound weird, but my son would spend hours playing with the globes and watching the tiny white balls create what looked like the most majestic snowstorm. I tried taking him places that had better snow globes, but he was adamant about only getting his globes from the store that looked to be falling apart. 3 days ago, I took my son to Gifts That Last for our monthly trip. He was bouncing in his chair, showing the same excitement he had when his mother gave him his first one. I looked at the building and stared at the mold-covered bricks, windows that were stained brown, and the blue paint that was chipping off of the sign. I took a deep breath and walked into the store with my son. The lady that worked there seemed to be far older than the building itself, but she always had an electric presence to her. She walked up to Michael and placed her hand on his shoulder and said, "Oh dear boy, I have the most excellent globe for you today." She skipped to the back of the counter and took out a simple white globe. There was only one building inside of the globe. It took me a second to realize that the building inside of the globe was her shop. He jumped up and down and pointed at it, begging me with his eyes to buy it for him. I let out a laugh and walked up to the counter. I took out my card and almost had a heart attack when I saw her ringing up the snow globe for $219.49. I tried to back out of it, but she looked at me and said, "I promise, the snow globe will bring your son happiness for the rest of his life." I tried to complain about the price, but I saw the smile on my son's face and bit my lip. After the transaction, she gently placed the overpriced globe in the bag and looked up at me before saying, "This is just a little addition to the purchase." She took out a red globe and I saw that it was identical to the white one. I thanked her and we walked out of the store. Everything went by normally for a day, but 2 days ago I walked past Michael's room and he was staring at the red globe with absolute hatred. Before I knew it, he got up and started to scream at the globe. "I'm not a bitch! Stop saying these mean things to me! I don't want you anymore! Please go away!" I ran into the room and my son quickly sat back down and stared up at me with an innocent look on his face. I asked him why he said those words and who he was talking to, but he continued to just stare at me before finally saying, "Sorry, Daddy, I'm just playing pretend. I won't say those words anymore." Confused and slightly disturbed, I just slowly nodded at him and walked out of his room. I stood next to his room and tried to listen in, but he didn't say another word for the rest of the night. He went to school the next morning, and I went to work after I made sure he got on the school bus. I am the general manager at the local McDonald's. Not a super fancy job, but it pays enough for me to fully provide my son everything he needs, as well as pay for the babysitter that watches him till I get home at 6 p.m. Last night, I walked into the house and saw the babysitter cleaning up broken pieces of glass. She told me that Michael got very mad at the red snow globe and smashed it on the ground. She said that he walked casually back into his room after that and refused to tell her why he did it. I quietly walked up to Michael's room and took a look inside. He was hugging the white globe and talking to it softly. He kissed it twice before I walked into his room and asked him why he smashed the red globe. He shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know, I just got mad at it. I asked, why did you get mad at it? Did it call you names again? He looked down at his knees and said, no. It talked about mommy. It said that she was a whore, that she deserved to die. It said that you were a pussy. So I got mad and threw it on the ground. I don't know what those words mean, but it sounded mean, and I didn't want it to keep saying those things. I told it to stop, but it kept going. It's quiet now. He refused to say another word to me after that. I tried asking him several other questions, but he would just stare at the white globe and let out an occasional smile. I walked out of his room and paid the babysitter after I helped her pick up the rest of the shattered globe. I gave her an extra 20 so she wouldn't quit after my son's temper tantrum. She thanked me and quickly walked out of my house. When I walked past my son's room again, I saw that the lights were off and he was snoring quietly on his bed. I let out a sigh, quietly closed his door and walked into my room. I went to bed around 10 p.m. that night, but woke up around midnight to the sound of my son's laughter. Confused, I got off of my bed and walked up to his bedroom door. I could hear him softly whisper. He would go back to laughing every couple of seconds. After listening for a little over 2 minutes, I slowly opened his door and saw him whisper to the globe before letting out a laugh. I walked into his room and he didn't look up at me. He just kept all of his attention on the snow globe. Growing a bit worried and desperate, I slowly shook him, but he didn't look at me or pay any attention to me. I took the globe out of his hands and put it on top of his closet. I expected to hear him cry or throw a fit, but by the time I turned around, he was already asleep. This morning, I woke up to the sound of knocking on my front door. I got out of bed and walked to the door and opened it. Nobody was there, but there was a small note and a package sitting on my welcome mat. I took the note and the package into the house and sat on the couch. I didn't really want to, but I opened the package and saw a snow globe wrapped in bubble wrap. There was one single house inside of the globe and 3 people standing outside of the house. The house looked exactly like our house, and the 3 people standing outside it looked like my wife, me, and Michael. With shaking fingers, I grabbed the note and read it. By the time I was done with the note, I didn't know what to think. Jeremy, your wife loved you and your son very much. She was always concerned about Michael and you. One day, she asked me if there was any way she'd be able to stay with Michael if anything were to happen to her. I told her a way. I told her if she were to die, she could give me permission to dig her grave out, take a bone, and use the bone as the snow in the snow globes. You see, Michael is indeed a special child. He sees the spirits that we cannot see, and the only way your wife, his mother, could be with him is if some part of her managed to get back into the house. I love you guys too. You may not know this, but I've known your wife since she was born. I'm her mother, but that is not really important. So as his grandmother, I want him to be able to talk to me. This snow globe has part of me inside of it. My son, her brother, has made it for Michael. Please let him have this globe. I know you want to have some sort of revenge on the man that killed your wife. I took his bone and put it into the red globe. If your son smashed it like he was supposed to do, the man will be alone for the rest of his life. The only thing he will have is his memories. He will torture himself for all eternity. Take care of Michael. We can only do so much. Don't let him lose these globes. They're the only connections he has to us. Love, Margaret. I am going to let him keep the globes. Hell, I took the day off so I could try talking to the white globe. I wanted to talk to my wife again. I wanted to tell her that I love her, but I'm not like my son. The globe stays quiet, and I'm starting to feel even more alone than I used to. But at least Michael will never be alone. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, and make sure to share and subscribe to help feed the Dark Machine.